as a skill is to be able to get to the end of the test in the 60 minutes. Because maybe one of those questions that you didn't read is something that you could do, and is something that you would have gotten right, or something that you felt confident about. And so part of the skill of taking the ACT is knowing when to say, I just don't know on this one, I've got to move on. And so try to hit the back of the test by the 60 minutes. The other thing that you're doing is, if you do skip a question, make sure you're putting an answer down, because there's no penalty for guessing. Mark it, draw a big circle around it, do something to say, hey, I want to go try this question again. I'm not confident about my answer, but do put an answer down. And the reason for that is two. One, that guessing isn't penalized, but also, especially if you're doing the paper bubble sheet, if you try and leave a question blank, the chances of forgetting that you left it blank and then start bubbling in the wrong answer on the wrong line goes way up. And so, if anything else, give yourself that answer as a spacer. If you're one of the people who are taking it as a computerized test, they do have some built-in tools to let you mark, I want to go back to this question. And so absolutely use that if you end up being taking it digitally. But whatever the case, try and have at least read every question on the test, and it's hard. That being said, we are going to go through the answers for the first 40 and then give you some extra time to allow you to have that practice and make the most of our time. But I really wanted to give you that perspective of, that's what 60 minutes for 60 questions feels like. And it's fast. It really is fast. All right. So I have the first 20 written up. I didn't get a chance to write the second 20, so we'll just be reading for that. But go ahead and go to your first beginning of test so that you have your answers in front of you. And we've got people coming in. We haven't started yet, so it's all right. For anyone who is on recording, make sure that you are testing first, and then we will come back and check. So if you are doing this after the fact, make sure that you have taken the test number 10 in the blue book, math, and then come back and check your answer. So question 1 is D. Question 2, G. Oh, sorry, I've got a hand up. Is there a question, Ashika?
Yeah. I can't see the left hand side.
Oh, thank you. I
board.
moved the recording, but I didn't get this one. I will get out of the way. I am going to read them aloud as well, but it makes your life easier to have it written as well. So question 1 is D. Question 2, G. Question 3, B, as in boy. Question 4, G. Question 5, C. Question 6 is F. Question 7 is E. Question 8, K. Question 9, A. Question 10, J. 11, D. 12, G. 13, C. 14, F. 15, C. 16, K. 17, A. 18, H. 19, B. 20, K. Questions so far? All right. Again, moving on to the second 20. We are going to say that 21 is B, 22, G, 23, C, 24, F, 25, E. 26 is G, as in girl. 27, E, elephant. 28 is F. 29, E, elephant. 30, G. "31, F, no, sorry, that one's my fault. 31 is C, I looked at the one below it. 32 is F. 33 is C. 34, K. 35 is D. And then 36, H. 37, B. 38, J. 39, A. 40, K. Is there any of those that I got hard to pronounce about? All right. We're gonna take about 15 minutes to have you look over your answers. If it's a case of, oh yeah, I knew that, I just wrote it wrong, that's all right. But if you have any of the problems that you knew for certain, I was just really lost on this one, I didn't know what was going on, and you would like an explanation, please, you can tell me in person if you're here, you can put it in the chat on Zoom, or you can send it through WhatsApp. I will be sending out answers via WhatsApp if there are any that we don't get to, and I know we probably won't, so we're going to answer what we can and then send written answers. Yes, Ashika?
We've only done 40, 60 on the test.
Yes, we're going to take a little bit more time to work after we finish answering questions on these first 40. And so we're going to give you a little bit more time to work on those. The 60 was to give you a chance to see this is how much time you'll have on the test. But for the purposes of learning and practicing, we're going to take a little bit more time after questions in order to let you have a little bit more time to work on those last 20. So questions about the first 40 is what we're looking for. Yes, and tell me what page it's on because I have to flip back.
Number 38 on page 792.
38. All right. So this one is going to be kind of a time-consuming one, and there's not really a way to do it. They've set it up so that it's hard to guess and check. The one thing that you could do is to test the point -2 and see if it works or not for each equation. And then if there's more than one, solve from there. And so that's how I would tackle that one. And so if you plug in -2 into that first equation, you have -2 times -2 is 4, plus 12 is 16, and then you have -2 minus 2 is -4. And 16 is definitely not smaller than -4, and so that one doesn't work. And so on those, I would be doing the test case of checking -2 in each inequality. And if it happens that it works for more than one, then I would be solving it into graphing specifically, getting an answer to double check which one is the correct one. And so that's what I would do for that. Do you want more explanation or just
No,
that?
that's good.
Okay. Good question. Any others? Yes. Online, Aisha. Ashika, sorry.
So I also had that one,
Okay, you want me to go more on that one?
and I solved the one for letter G.
Okay.
Like I solved for X.
Okay.
I got that X is less than or equal to -2, so that was confusing.
When you were solving, did you subtract the 2x or did you subtract the 4x?
The 4X.
Okay, so you probably had a negative in front of your coefficient. And the one key to inequalities that's different than equations is that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality. And that's the only thing that's different than an equal sign. It's the one wrinkle to inequalities.
That's what I did, and I still got.
Okay. It
It was less than that. So that was weird.
Okay, so we have 4x minus 2 greater than or equal to 2x minus 3. And if we subtract the 4x, then we are going to be adding 3. And we get 1 is greater than or equal to -2x. And then we are dividing by -2. It flips the inequality. We have x, but here we have -0.5. Is it saying that G is the correct answer on number 38?
No.
Okay.
I think just
So it was just the numbers that got lost?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
they were good. There have been known to be wrong answers in this book. There are a couple in the total of the 10 tests. This wasn't one that I had found earlier, but I have caught a couple mistakes. They happen. They even happen on the test. As many editors as they have been mistakes, and they are usually caught on the back end because they have so many people who are doing really, really well, and they all miss this one problem, and so they go back and double check. And so there is a bit of a fail-safe if there ever is an editing error. All right, any others on the first 40?
Could you do number 18?
Sure. Oh, this is a classic one. So this is the ACT feeling really show-offish. And so we've got this situation with a triangle, and they tell you that it's a 30, 60, 90 right triangle, and they've got this going on here, and they tell you that angle X measures 125 degrees, and they want you to find the measure of angle Y. This one is a classic too much information problem. Because guess what? X and Y are related by the straight line. You don't need the 30, you don't need the 60, you don't need the 90, you don't need the triangle at all. You've got a straight line. It's cut here. This part's 125. How much is left over for y? 55. And so they do this a lot. They love throwing it at you and making your brain go, oh no, I've got to remember all this and I've got to remember all this, and you just tailspin, when in reality, it's just hidden within it of a very simple find the other half problem. Classic ACT, really good question to go over, because it makes you think, oh no, I've got to think of this and this and this, and then you really don't. So, very good question. Right. Any final ones?
Can we go over number 8?
Absolutely. All right. So we have x squared minus 2x plus 1 on the top of our fraction, and we have x minus 1 on the bottom. And it says for all x not equal to 1, and the reason they give that restriction is because 1 would cause a divide by 0 error. And so we can't have x equals 1, but we can talk about everything else. And it gives you equal to a bunch of stuff that looks a lot simpler, a lot smaller. And so the key to solving this is to factor this top. We are looking at 2 things, and then we're dividing by this thing that is x minus 1. And the thing that I like about these questions is that we're not going cold on this one. We know we need to factor, but in order to have something simplify, something has to cancel being the same in the top and the bottom. And so one of our factors is going to be x minus 1. We know that it's going to cancel because they asked us to simplify. And so you've already got that hint. So in order to get plus 1, negative 1 would have to be multiplied by negative 1. In order to get x squared, we would have x multiplied by x. And then if we look at it, okay, x squared, x minus 1, negative 2x, negative 1 times negative 1 does give us that positive 1. And so here, this cancels, and this is our answer. And so they are kind of fond of those with the simplify. There's usually one that looks something like that. And so if you use it to know, oh, I'm simplifying, something's going to cancel out of the top and the bottom, it can actually make the factoring easier than doing it just by yourself. Just trying to come up with the factors, because they already tell you what the one is. You just figure out what the other one is. Another good question. Yes.
So if I'm being totally honest, on 5, I totally guessed,
Okay.
but I got it right.
Oh, that's
I'm
happy.
Also, yeah. But I'm also wondering how, like, D doesn't go with X. Is it because it kind of crosses? Or it does go?
D does go with X.
Yeah.
So, parallel lines cut by a transversal. I'm actually doing this with my geometry students right now. I call them the bow tie angles. As long as these are parallel, then these 4 angles are all the same. And what happens is they introduce a second set of parallel lines. And so now this is also parallel. If we ignore that this exists, now I have this being the transversal, and I've got the 2 groups going this way. And so again, the bow tie angles, this is the same, this is the same. and we can go around the shape that this is the same and this is the same. And so when you've got those pairs of parallel lines, all of these are going to be the same.
Okay.
And then in the other direction, all of these are going to be the supplement, the other half of 180. And so if you have to find those, you just subtract from 180.
Okay.
And so you don't have to know these were corresponding angles or alternate interior angles or anything else like that for the ACT. You just have to be able to get the answer. And so if you remember the bow ties, they're really easy to find. Excellent questions. Guessing right is a perfectly valid strategy, but especially if we're studying, it's good to check in on why was that right. All right. Very good questions altogether. Yes, online.
Can we also go over number 29?
Yes. All right. Which of the following equals the reciprocal of a minus 1 over b, where a minus 1 over b does not equal 0? So again, that restriction is just that when we flip it, we don't want to end up with a 0 on the bottom. And so that's why that exists. We don't have to pay attention to it other than to acknowledge we're not going to create a divide by 0 error. So a minus 1 over b, reciprocal means flip. And so this goes to the bottom, this goes to the top, and so it should have been the C. Is that correct?
Well, that's what I chose, and you said the right answer was E, so that's confusing.
That might be one of those wrong ones. I will double check if my speaking was wrong. This was 29.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying E. And I think that that is wrong because reciprocal just means flip. So I believe that is an error, and it is good to double check. Again, test is not infallible because reciprocal should just mean flip, and there's no reason to introduce that B there. I believe that that is an error. Way to stick to your guns. Yes.
I had a brain fart on number 34. Can you just go through that one real quick?
34. Ah, this is not a brain fart. This is one of my favorite problems because this is the one that I got wrong as a math teacher. I was mistaught by my math teacher, and so it is one that I learned late in life. And so the question is, for every pair of natural numbers are any of our counting numbers, a plus b, to which of the following sets must a plus b belong? So, a plus b, I'm just going to pick numbers because it's easier to talk about. If I had 3 plus 7, it equals 10. And so in reality, they're talking about the sum of two natural numbers, but the sum of two natural numbers is going to be a natural number. And so what sets does the natural numbers belong to? And so the first one is the integers. Is 10 an integer? Yes. The second one, the real numbers. Is 10 a real number? Yes. The third one, the rational numbers. Is 10 a rational number? Yes. So rational means it can be written as a fraction. 10 can be written as 10 over 1 or 20 over 2, etc. we can write 10 as a fraction, and so it is rational. And then the complex numbers. And that's the one that drives people nuts. Because it's 10. Does it look complex to you? No. But what does a complex number mean? A complex number means it can be written in the form of D plus CI. And so some real portion and some imaginary portion. That is a complex number. For example, 2 plus 5i is a complex number. But, back to our example of 10, it can be written in this form. It would be 10 plus 0i. There are 0 imaginary bits, but we can still write it as a complex number. Yes?
What would not be a complex number?
Nothing.
Okay.
That is a good question. And so everything belongs to the complex number systems, even if we think that does not look complex at all. And so I was not taught this caveat, and I was wrong until I got to be an adult. And so you now know more than me, or at least high school me.
But like, when you say everything, you mean like every fraction, decimal, everything?
Yes.
Okay.
And so even things like pi plus EI, that is a complex number. That one's really complex, extra complex. All right, we are going to give you an additional 15 minutes to work on the end of the test, the last 20 problems. I hope that you had the chance to at least get started on them, but take an additional 15 to answer everything you can, and then write down what questions you have. Again, it's entirely possible we won't have a chance to finish answering all your questions online today, but I will send written answers out. And so be prepared to ask. And case in point, if you happen to guess right, that's great. Still ask if you're feeling uncertain about why. Yes.
Can we go over number 32?
We're gonna go ahead and get back to working on the testing, but I will put it first for review. So we will get back to it. And anything before 40 you can still ask about as well when we get to the final questions. Any questions we don't have time to answer will get sent out. So keep them coming. right. We are gonna close down by going over the last answers for the last 20, and then we will take down your questions. So if you go to number 41, we have 41 is E, 42 F, 43 D, 44 G, 45 A. "46 J, 47 B, 48 H, 49 C, 50 J. 51 D, 52 K, 53 A, 54 H, 55 C, 56 G, 57 C, 58 F, 59 A, 60 G. So give you a chance to get settled. Are there any questions that you need me to read out again? I kind of cut the numbers short to be able to get them in time. All right. So first and foremost from last round, we have question 32. All right. What other questions do you have? Yes.
46.
46. All right, and putting up the chat. If you don't want to shout out, you don't have to, but questions from online, any numbers that you would like to see in more detail. Yes, again.
Number 56.
56. Okay.
Number 43.
43. Okay. All right. Oh, was that the hand up, or is somebody still waiting to speak? All right. Well, let's go ahead and look at 32. If you want to drop additional questions into the chat, that is all right. So when we look at 32, an isosceles right triangle, the hypotenuse is 12. So in order to be isosceles, it has to have the two legs being the same. And so here's our right triangle. These are the same. And they tell us that the hypotenuse, or the longest side, is 12. What is the length of one of the sides? So this one is a very classic problem. As you get into Algebra 2 or Pre-Calc, they use these special right triangles a lot, and you'll get more confident with them. But for now, the important part to remember is that if you draw this line in right here, it's going to break this up into 6 and 6. And because these are still 45 degrees, this is also 6. And so if you don't know the special right triangle case, you can still do 6 squared plus 6 squared equals here, this is going to be my hypotenuse squared. You have 36 plus 36 equals the hypotenuse squared, or 72 square rooted equals that hypotenuse there. It does simplify to 6 square roots of 2 if you have to run it through the calculator and then match it by running the answers through the calculator. That's an okay technique. They'll be a little bit slower, but it still would get you the right answer. And so that's what's going on with that one. The special right triangles, I believe, are on page 3 of that math book. They are 30, 60, 90s or 45, 45, 90s. And they usually have about one question with the special right triangles on them. And so it's a optimization game of if you need to study that and nothing else, great. If you need to put your effort somewhere else, just work with it the way you can. All right. On number 46. We have let x equal 3y minus 4z plus 7. This is a good one. And the question is, what happens to the value of x? Oh, x equals the whole thing. If the value of y decreases by 2 and the value of z is increased by 1. So, on these, you have the power of picking any numbers you want. And so, I like to use, okay, y equals 0 and z equals 0. I pick those numbers. If these are equal to 0, what does x equal?
0 or 7.
7. So x equals 7. So, if y decreases by 2, we get negative 2. 2 less than 0, negative 2. If z increases by 1, now z equals 1. And so now we have 3 times negative 2 minus 4 times 1 plus 7. This is negative 6. This is negative 4. And then plus 7. Negative 10 plus 7. What is that? Negative 3. And so what has changed from 7 to negative 3? What happened to our x value?
Minus 10.
Minus 10,
Decrease
j,
by
it decreases by 10. And so if those algebra variables are really intimidating, you can pick any numbers you want. Pick easy numbers and see what answers it spits out. And so you can create a situation to find those answers. All right. 43, jumping back. Gail made apple jelly and applesauce out of a bushel of apples. If the number of jars of jelly, J, is 3 less than twice the number of applesauce, A, which expression shows the relationship of jars of jelly to the jars of applesauce? So this is just translating into algebra. We have jelly is 3 less than twice applesauce. And so we want 3 less than twice applesauce. And so you have to remember, even if they told you 3 less than first, you have to have something you're taking it away from. So least 3 less than twice the applesauce is equal to our jelly. But they didn't really give us this one. And so we can move this over and say jelly plus 3 equals 2 applesauces. And that one they did offer us as option B. And so I think it's kind of a jerk move. There's some things on ACT I understand why they're being clever, but that one, it's just annoying. All right. 56 is our last problem. So I think I'm just going to do it. Which of the following intervals contain the solution to the equation below? Okay. So we have, where'd it go? X minus 2 on one side is equal to 2x plus 5 divided by 3. I don't like fractions. I'm going to get rid of them as soon as possible anytime I can. And so to undo this divide by 3, we multiply by 3. The rule of equations say we have to do the same thing to both sides. And we have 3x minus 6 equals 2x plus 5. The second rule of equations is I don't like negative variables. They increase the chance of making a mistake. And so I'm always going to move the littler one. And so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides and get just x. If I pulled my x's over here, I'm going to push my numbers to the other direction. So I'm going to say plus 6 and get that x equals 11. And then finally the question is, which interval is that in? Well, the second one allows us to be equal to 11. The first one has 11 as a boundary, but it doesn't say or equal to, so we have to jump to the next one. And that is our answer. All right. We don't have time for any more explanations in class, but again, if you want to send it in the chat or talk to me before you leave, or send it via WhatsApp, I will be putting up any explanation answers that you choose into the WhatsApp chat. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask, and that goes for people recording as well. If you have recording questions, please send a WhatsApp. All right. With that, we are done. Thank you for staying till the end. It's been a good day, even if it was a little chaotic. And have an excellent week.